The office holiday party had all the usual trappings: twinkling fairy lights, a buffet table groaning under the weight of shrimp cocktails and mini quiches, and the hum of casual chatter punctuated by laughter and clinking glasses. I usually avoided these gatherings. They were loud, artificial, and always felt like a minefield, but this year, my wife, Emily, had insisted we attend. "Come on, it'll be fun," she had said, dragging me out of my weekend laziness. "You'll meet everyone, see the office vibe, and besides, it's polite." I'd agreed, mostly to make her happy. Emily had been working at the firm for 3 years, climbing the corporate ladder with her usual determination and charm. She wore a deep green satin dress that hugged her in all the right ways, and her smile was bright enough to light up the dimly decorated ballroom. As we walked in, I felt the usual mix of awkwardness and mild irritation. The office crowd was a sea of familiar faces, most of whom nodded politely but didn't really engage with me. Then I saw him, Mr. Caldwell, Emily's boss. He had the kind of presence that made people simultaneously respect and fear him. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, and a reputation for cutting through pretense like a scalpel. I tried to ignore the subtle tension between him and Emily, something she often dismissed as typical office dynamics, but tonight, there was a glint in his eyes that made my skin crawl. He had a way of speaking with a smile that felt like a trap, polite, but edged with a challenge. The party was in full swing when it happened. Emily had stepped away to chat with a colleague, and I was nursing a drink by the side, observing the scene, when Caldwell approached. He tilted his head slightly, studied me for a moment, and said, "You must be Emily's husband." His tone was casual, but there was a sharpness beneath it, a subtle test. "I've heard, she's been rather ambitious lately." I forced a polite smile, keeping my voice steady. "Yes, she's very dedicated. And talented, of course." Caldwell's eyes narrowed just slightly, and a smirk crossed his face. "Talented, yes, though some might say she's difficult to manage." His words were light, but I could feel the weight behind them, the veiled jab that suggested I didn't quite belong here, that maybe Emily's accomplishments were a threat, or worse, a reflection of my inadequacy. I kept my calm. "I'm sure she's a delight to work with," I said smoothly, though my fingers twitched slightly around my glass. He chuckled, the kind of chuckle that sounded amused but also calculating. "Ah, I'm sure you mean well. But I do wonder sometimes how spouses handle the more challenging aspects of office politics. It can be, shall we say, delicate." I froze for just a second, not out of fear, but out of irritation. He was crossing a line, implying that Emily and I somehow needed a referee in the form of his approval. Most people wouldn't have noticed the subtle aggression, but I felt it like a spark in the air. And then, almost instinctively, I decided it was time to remind him exactly who I was. I straightened my posture, looked him squarely in the eyes, and said, "Mr. Caldwell, Emily is more than capable of handling herself, and more than capable of handling anyone who doubts her. But let me make one thing very clear, I am not someone you can underestimate either." There was a pause. I could feel his smirk faltering slightly, and for the first time, the calm, controlled demeanor he wore like armor seemed to crack. The surrounding office chatter continued, but there was a subtle shift. Some of the staff nearby had noticed the tension, their curiosity piqued. Caldwell recovered quickly, of course. He raised an eyebrow and said, "Is that so?" His tone was sharp, but now it carried a hint of surprise. "Yes," I replied, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Emily is brilliant, driven, and fiercely independent. And anyone who thinks otherwise, well, they're welcome to find out the hard way." He laughed, but it was different this time, not smug, not superior, but slightly forced, as if he realized his usual dominance in these interactions wasn't going to work tonight. "Impressive," he said, a hint of respect creeping in. Not many spouses would have the courage to speak so frankly. I let him stew for a moment, then simply smiled and turned away. I joined Emily, who had been watching from across the room, her eyebrows raised in a mix of surprise and amusement. "You handled him," she said quietly, slipping her hand into mine. "I didn't even think anyone could." I just reminded him that some lines aren't for crossing, I said, shrugging lightly, though inside, I felt a surge of satisfaction. The rest of the night went smoothly after that. Caldwell stayed distant, his usual smarmy comments notably absent, and Emily's colleagues seemed to glance at me with a newfound respect. I could see it in their eyes, the quiet acknowledgement that this wasn't just Emily's world tonight, my presence mattered too. As the party wound down and we walked home under the soft glow of streetlights, Emily slipped her arm through mine. "You really shocked him," she said, her voice soft, a mix of awe and affection. "I've never seen him lose his cool like that." I chuckled. It wasn't about shocking him. It was about making sure he knew that Emily's worth isn't negotiable, and neither is mine. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Well, you definitely made a statement. And I think I like it." "Good," I said, feeling the warmth of both victory and closeness. Because some people need to learn that respect isn't optional. That night, as we settled in at home, I realized something important. In a world where ambition and hierarchy often collide with personal relationships, the strongest bonds are the ones built on trust and mutual respect. And sometimes, it takes a small, unexpected confrontation to remind everyone exactly where those lines lie, and who isn't to be underestimated. Caldwell never did make the same smug comments again, and Emily's confidence seemed to glow even brighter in the following weeks. And as for me, I carried a quiet satisfaction knowing that at the work party, when her boss tried to cross me, he never saw it coming.